Okay, hello. We had a few technical difficulties, but thanks to my amazing assistant, Elizabeth, we are on live. So, hi, I'm Jess with Lexia Learners. I am the founder and owner of Lexia Learners. We specialize in tutoring and small group classes for students with dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, auditory processing disorder, and similar learning differences. So today, I'm very excited to have 6 wonderful people here to be on our panel, and 3 are moms and 3 are former students who are tutored by me for 2 to 3 years. So on the top, we have Layla, who just turned 20 on Friday. Happy birthday, Layla. And her mom, Lisa. And then just below them, we have Izzy and her mom, Caroline. And Izzy, I forget how old you are. Are you 12 or 13?
12.
12. All right. And Joseph and his mom, Sarah, are on the bottom. And they, Joseph is 13, right?
14.
14.
14. He just turned 14. Yeah.
Yes. Joseph turned 14 in April, right?
May.
May. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me try not to memorize these things. And so Joseph and Sarah are coming to us from Hawaii. I always love to brag about them being in Hawaii, and I really hope to get out and visit them before they leave Hawaii. So I really appreciate the 6 of you coming on today and sharing your experience, strength, and hope with dyslexia and all of the other neurodiversities that often are comorbid with dyslexia. So I'm going to start with some general questions for y'all, and then we'll go into a couple of specific questions. And then if the audience has any questions, feel free to post them on the page or the chat or wherever it is appropriate to do so. And we will ask those questions as well if there is time. So my first question is to anyone who would like to answer, or all of you. What is dyslexia to you? Because so many people misunderstand what dyslexia is. So would any of you like to start off by telling us your definition of dyslexia?
Dyslexia, I'd say how I see it is, it's kind of people's whose brains are built differently to the average person, I'd say, making it so they see the world in a different way, and subsequently also making it so that things like reading and writing can be difficult because of the certain things in your brain that are different. Yeah.
And it really varies from person to person.
It's a spectrum for sure.
Yeah, because I have 2 children who've had dyslexia, and they were completely different in their presentation of dyslexia.
Very true. I have 5 people in my family, and it's very different amongst all of us. Or 5 people with dyslexia in my family.
Yeah.
All right, would anyone else like to add anything to that, or should we move on?
My definition, I think, is it's hard for people with dyslexia to work or to do school because it gets really distracting and stuff.
Great.
It's harder and you have to focus more. Yeah.
All right, and for the kids, how old were you when you noticed that you struggled with dyslexia? Obviously, you didn't know it was dyslexia at the time, but when did you notice the struggles? Can you remember?
I don't know. Well, since my older brother has dyslexia and he was kind of, I guess, diagnosed with it like a lot earlier than I was, like it was almost assumed that I had it because I had similar challenges like he had with reading and writing at an early age. But yeah, it's kind of just, yeah, I mean, I don't know, would you say there was a certain like age?
I think since we knew that she wasn't reading easily by the age of 6, that we assumed she probably had something going on, and we had started with a tutor to see if that would help, because that did help her brother. But it turned out it was a whole different level of dyslexia. So it
Needed different.
needed more.
Yeah.
Yeah, your level of severity required
Yeah.
an Orton Gillingham based approach versus your brother who was able to learn
Mhm.
quicker just from having the one-on-one help of a regular tutor. Is that?
Yeah.
And Caroline, I saw you put up your hands. How old was Izzy when you guys realized it or started noticing?
We didn't get our diagnosis until she was 7, but she started some interventions, and we were aware of the fact that she had a difference at 6.
Mhm.
And how about you, Joseph or Sarah?
It was probably like 9 or 10 or 8, somewhere around there.
Joseph had a little bit of a different experience. And this is where me not really understanding what dyslexia is was a harder situation because he was older. He was actually hyperlexic and taught himself to read at age 4. And it all fell apart in 4th grade. And I was advised that it was just a behavior issue. And so we had 2 terrible years that he refused to do any school. And later, someone told me that a kid would rather look sassy than stupid. And that really hit me, that's why he was acting out behavior wise, was because it was hard. I didn't understand what it was because he could read, but he actually memorized a ton of words and was able to do that until his 4th grade reading level. And that's when, but there were some things now that I know more. When he was little, he couldn't hear the difference between, he had an OT and he couldn't hear the difference between her name, Erica, and the word haircut, or alligator and elevator.
Wow.
Left and right was hard for him, tying shoes. So now that I know what dyslexia is, and looking at his writing samples, you know, like the capital letters and the punctuation and all of that. So what really tipped me off was I watched some YouTube videos from Susan Barton, and she had a video that was how to spot dyslexia with a writing sample. And that was because one of my friends mentioned it, and I was like, no, he doesn't have dyslexia. Like, he's been reading since 4. I didn't even teach him. And actually he's an excellent reader now. So he just sees more in his spelling and writing and some other things like directions. So I just wish I had known what it was and hadn't assumed behavior for 2 years. Joseph, do you remember what he used to say? He used to say he likes dyslexia because it made his mom nice again. Then we knew what it was.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot harder to like deal with if you have no idea what you're dealing with. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that with my daughter because I spent years trying to figure out what it was. And it was such a relief when we finally had a label to put on her. So, and that's why I wanted to do this, is because so many people think dyslexia is reversing letters. And do any of you, I didn't write this question, but do any of you have reversal issues? I don't think so.
not
Some differentiation issues, B and D. Like, I didn't realize that Joseph always used capital B and Ds.
That was to avoid reversing it.
Yeah. So he did that. He still does that, to be honest. But now I know why. So whatever.
So yeah, like reversing letters other than a couple of them is not as common as people think that it is.
Yeah. Oh, she froze.
She did freeze.
Yeah.
Talking about how common it is or not common that letters are backwards or not backwards. I know that my daughter, we're just experiencing her reading, and she's in the third grade, and she writes all of her B's, D's, 5s, 7s, 9s, 6s. They're all backwards.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely something that people think is more of like the forefront of it, but there's a lot of other things that are even more common that people don't even think about. But yeah, like I reverse certain like sevens sometimes. I just forget which way they go. It's just, but
So what was some of the benefits of the teachings that Jess had showed you to make it so that, does it still happen? Like what goes on with that?
She has some good tricks for like P's and D's and like what is it? It's like upwards. Oh, like this is a B, or what is it? And then downwards, pigs go down in the mud or something like that. I don't know, but yeah. Oh, it's
Jess just came back. Can you hear us, Jess?
I
She called for
can.
Disney.
Holding up the fort.
Oh, well, we still can't hear her, so that's okay.
I was gonna say, like, when oh shoot, I can't remember your name.
Well, Elizabeth.
When he was saying that his behavior was what he was,
Oh, yeah.
he'd rather be sassy than stupid.
Joseph.
So Joseph, sorry.
Yeah.
My son did that, where he would rather drop his pencil or get off task or just kind of avoid doing things instead of trying to struggle along. That was very common with him. Whereas that wasn't necessarily the case with Layla. I think she just, we decided not to tackle the subject like kind of at all together.
Until I was like ready for it, because it's a lot, especially if it's really severe or whatever, and you're like a small child, and like it can be very overwhelming.
And I think we're the only two here that did unschooling. So we were homeschooling, but also unschooling. So it was completely child-led. So whatever she wanted to tackle and however she wanted to tackle it, we did. So the type of learning she did was always like visual. We would go to a class if she wanted to, or she would learn via videos, and just avoided the whole reading and writing thing altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Izzy goes to traditional school, and Joseph is homeschooled. However, he goes to classes.
Not anymore.
Not currently because it's COVID. And then Layla was unschooled. So 3 different learning experiences. Would you guys like a little bit more about how that was for each of you to, or how it is for each of you to learn in those environments that you're currently experiencing? Joseph, do you want to talk about your homeschooling experience?
I like homeschooling because I can work wherever. Like, I just came back from my bed from reading something. I could go somewhere else to do something else and then go somewhere else. I could work in my pajamas. Or like I could wake up at like early in the morning and then start school before my mom's even awake.
And how about your co-op? How do you feel? How did you feel before tutoring is it different for you now that you have completed the Barton reading and spelling program? What is it like for you to go to classes?
It's
You like to read aloud.
yeah.
Yeah, before, when we knew what was going on, I would, talk privately with the teacher beforehand and just ask them not to have him read aloud, and would try to, if there's any books, to do audio. But Joseph now, he's reading above grade level and can read aloud just fine, and he still has some hard times with spelling. So but it's a lot better, and he uses a program called Grammarly. So just like talking beforehand with different co-op teachers, and then coming up with creative accommodations. Like nowadays, you really don't have to be held back. It's definitely, before though, he couldn't even pick the spell check word. So that, at least now he can use spell check, right? Yeah.
You better be able to.
And I have noticed his spelling is a ton better. So it might not be typical or whatever, but it's functional. And so that's great. And then just to see too where his, he has a lot of strengths that come with dyslexia too, which I feel like need to be talked about more. But sometimes the homeschool community, I think, sometimes sees that maybe better than some traditional schools.
Yeah. And when you would read, when we were doing tutoring, Joseph, what would I have you do?
Read slower.
Yeah, because he read faster than I could follow along. So he is a very fast reader. Yeah, reading is a really strong area for him. And when year 2, when we came back from summer, Joseph wasn't doing too well focusing or working. We would make it about 30 minutes and then I would lose him. So we came up with the plan to just start doing 30-minute sessions for Joseph. And that turned things around for him, just to reduce it by 20 minutes. He was actually the reason that we now have 30-minute tutoring session options. So thank you, Joseph. All right. And how about you, Izzy? What's it like going to school when it's not COVID and being dyslexic?
Like, there are other dyslexic kids in my class, and they have like the school, it's called Learning Lab, I think, and they like miss classes because of it. I'm glad I don't miss classes because of it.
You said you don't?
I don't.
How come you don't get pulled out for the Learning Lab, or?
No, because the other thing.
Because we work with Lexia learners.
Ah, nice.
I should say she has not been exactly like, she doesn't go to the local public school. She was at an international school that was kind of a Waldorf Montessori nature-based program, really heavy in the arts, and now she's at a Waldorf public charter. So both of them have amazing extra programs, and they wanted to pull her during those programs. That were the moments in her day that were the most enjoyable. And so Lexia learned, like, tutoring with you was what I wanted to do, because I didn't want her to miss out on garden or handwork or art.
Yeah, because that's where she enjoyed herself, right? And if you're pulled out of the classes you enjoy, then that makes school even more miserable.
There's no point. Yeah.
Well, cool. Okay, next question. How long did it take to start seeing academic improvement after you started tutoring?
I'd say pretty quick. I mean, maybe only a couple months to like at least feel like have at least more confidence. I feel like a lot of it is like just your attitude about it and like changing your whole mindset.
We worked with a different tutor before when she was really little, and she had really looked forward to that because it worked for her brother. And that was very demoralizing. Like it didn't work. So when she switched to Lexia Learners, it was years later after she had garnered enough inner strength to be able to tackle it again. And at that point, I think I had seen you speak once at a conference, Jess, and it was like you were in the back of my head as a resource. So when she said she was ready to actually talk to somebody or to think about tackling it again, I was like, I know somebody who might work. And so we talked to you, and it just seemed like we came for an evaluation because she was certain of what her condition was. I was, kind of flummoxed by it. So when we actually had her tested with you, it seemed like, okay, now she felt like, okay, this is the person that I want to work with. Like she just felt so comfortable with Lexia Learners and your style, like how you guys put your programs together. It just really was a good fit for her.
I think it really helps that Jess is dyslexic because it makes you feel like it's relatable. Like she's not going to judge you for like, oh, you can't do this, like, cause it's like, she has the same struggles, and she gets it. But yeah, especially also since she has kids that have dyslexia, it's like, it's more relatable, but yeah.
And you do it in such a positive way too. Like, that it's not a disability, it's just a difference. And after we had been through so much and Joseph was feeling so discouraged, like just having that encouragement, it was awesome, Jess, because you didn't make him feel bad. And he had been feeling bad for 2 years about school. And like real bad. And I was a part of that because I didn't know what was going on. But then just like your humor too, he loves to wear that shirt that says dyslexics untied and then it's crossed out united. It's just, or we just laugh about the left or right thing when he's giving me directions. Like it's just good to just laugh about the differences and not have to feel bad about them. And so not only did you help right away with his reading improved right away, spelling took quite a bit longer, but we definitely see it now. But just the encouragement was really helpful. And I know people can do Barton themselves, like the parents, but we really needed a tutor to come in so that it wasn't hurting his and my relationship, because I could just back off the reading and the spelling. And I didn't say anything about it for a long time, at least the first year and a half. I didn't do any spelling correction, or if he just wanted to listen to an audiobook instead, like fine. I didn't push any of it and was able to let Jess do that.
Yeah, definitely. Same here. Right?
Yep, totally same here. And that's why we got a tutor with the older kids. And that's because even though we were unschooling and homeschooling and things seemed really flexible and easy, there was definitely times where it was too hard to do it just on our own. So to have, especially to bring in an expert to tackle this, because this was not a DIY-able situation at all.
Yeah.
And Izzy and Caroline, do you guys have anything to add?
Well, I tend to DIY everything, and I really agree. There's no way that I could have dealt with this. I was in a position of starting to help her with her homework, and it was a dumpster fire every time. And our relationship could not have weathered me trying to figure this out and at all.
And how long did it take for you to feel to see improvement or feel improvements?
To be completely honest, like, I guess in the beginning of COVID, I was kind of like, wow, reading seems so much more fun and easier. Like, for no particular reason, just randomly one day I was like, ooh, great. Like, I enjoyed it, and I was like, wow, okay, reading.
Yeah, your mom sent me a text saying that you bought a couple of books at the bookstore and that you never would have done that before.
No.
Yeah, I got a library card like a little bit ago, and it was just so much fun. I love the library.
I
Yeah,
got a
that's-
Kindle Paperwhite like for my birthday, and I'm always on it, like in the night and all my spare time mostly.
That's cool because it has a dyslexia font, and that actually helps him quite a bit. And the color is different, so he's been doing really well in the Kindle.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was at one point buying the larger print, like the ones for the visual impairment books. That was helping him keep his place and stuff. But the Kindle, it's just cool. Some of the accommodations and everything.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know.
Can you use a Kindle book on an iPad? I mean, a Kindle app on an iPad?
I think so. Yeah.
We have it on our iPad.
Oh, apparently we do.
Okay. I know I relied on Joseph a great deal to help me with my technological things. See, I had to hire Elizabeth because you're no longer my student, so I couldn't turn to you anymore, Joseph.
Hire me.
And Joseph is going to be some sort of astrophysicist or engineer, something astro,
More
right?
like a geological sample test technician.
He just
Oh,
got
wait.
into geology.
I was like, wait, he changed his direction.
Yeah, now he was into space, now he's into geology. It's kind of the same.
Yeah, all sciencey.
Yeah.
All right, and do you mind sharing a little bit about, since Joseph is also on the spectrum, and I know when we first met, you said that that was all that the doctors had identified with him, so that was all you focused. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when Joseph, he was really young, he had a provisional diagnosis of autism at 14 months. And I mean, he didn't know that we were in the room. And he didn't talk until he was almost like, he was starting words at 4, but like 5 was when he really started talking a lot. And so he had a lot of intervention for autism and did really, really well, worked really hard and did, we had a really great team around that. And we were really glad to be able to homeschool. I pulled him in kindergarten out of the traditional school, just looking at what they offered him wasn't going to work. And he's really bright. Everybody's always said that too. So he's what you would call so has some learning differences that make things a little bit harder. But we always had just focused on autism. And when school got really hard, I feel like all that was talked about was behavior. And when he had been really good about, sorry, he's checking the internet. It says it's unstable. Can you guys still hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. When he was having difficulty in school, when he had always been so cheerful for me for schoolwork, and the only way that we originally had been told was that it was behavior. So a lot of times I feel like kids on the spectrum can fall through the cracks with learning disabilities, and they're just like, well, that's just behavior, that's just autism, like that's, and often things can happen together, like it's actually more likely. And so I felt like that was a disservice and maybe why he hadn't gotten help sooner. But now just seeing all of the neurological differences, there's a lot of positives too, and people just don't know. I guess also I had no idea. My father-in-law mentioned casually like 6 months ago that he has dyslexia. That would have been like good information to have. But because I know it does run in families, but it just wasn't on our radar because he had been dealing with so much else. But really now, the autism diagnosis, the only thing we really see the most is executive functioning. So like Jess said, his focus. But with homeschooling, we can keep stuff short, 20, 30 minutes, and then he can do something else.
And do you have any advice for other families? Because I've been getting a lot of calls, probably because of COVID, with families whose kids are on the spectrum and they also suspect dyslexia.
So you have to push really hard. It is getting a little bit better, getting services. Joseph, when he was first diagnosed with dyslexia, he was with a public charter in California. So we were dealing with the school district, and just like it was interesting to me how many services they would throw at autism, and then when you bring up dyslexia, all of a sudden they're super quiet about it. And so just to keep pushing, and I just did some YouTube videos on what dyslexia really is and showed people, because I just feel like even a lot of experts don't really understand dyslexia. It's kind of, I don't know why, but I guess just advocacy, it's a little bit behind some other things, which is interesting because it's so common.
Yeah, so common.
Yeah. Well, my mother was diagnosed with dyslexia in the 1940s. Wow. So, I mean, they've been diagnosing people for 80 years. You know, there definitely should be a lot more awareness than there is.
Yeah, it's definitely seems like it hasn't come as far as it should have in all these years. Yeah,
Right.
how many people have it? It's like, what, 1 in 5? I mean, it's like, yeah.
Yeah. And it's 1 in 5 in America. It varies in other places. Well, we have reached the end of our time, and we started a little bit late, but I actually have a student who I didn't cancel. So I need to jump on and go tutor my student. I really, really appreciate you guys helping out. Is there anything else you want to add before we close up?
I just wanted to say that when Izzy was 7, I just jumped the gun and went to the woman who could diagnose her, a neuropsychologist at UCI, and just spent all the money to have her like emotionally and psychologically and learning disability, like have all the assessment. It was grueling and horrible and expensive.
It was so long and so boring.
It was phenomenally thorough, but it was some of the best money I ever spent because she gave us a rock solid diagnosis. We were able to rule out any emotional difficulties because of course it happened right after her father and I separated. And, you know, I had suspected emotional difficulties and I had thought she was unwilling to read. Honestly, like I thought it was behavioral, and I needed somebody with a PhD to explain to me that it was not. And, you know, and all of those accommodations then, had we been in public school, would have been enforceable. And it turned out that the private school was pussycats, and they were like, of course, we'll do everything you need. And so that was great. And that's why she hasn't had like big problems in her class as far as differences, but I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah, I really wish we had gotten a proper diagnosis way earlier.
Yeah.
Because I was reluctant to actually spend the money to do the things, because I don't know. I thought it would be much harder, and I thought it would be harder on her. But actually, I think it would have really helped. And I regret the years that we didn't tackle this, because we made our own accommodations in our school. So we didn't necessarily need to.
Yeah.
But then when she became a teen and she wanted to like text with her friends, and like she had to figure out voice to text, and then she had to like figure out, well, does it actually say what I'm trying to say? And that was intimidating and difficult. And so it kept going, and we waited until she was 17, I think, to actually really
Like,
do it.
yeah.
And that was 10 years or more of knowing that there was something going on and not actually.
Yeah, I'd say people should really go with their intuition with it and like just kind of go through it. It's, but I think it's like dyslexia is like gets seen as like a negative thing. So you're almost like, well, I don't want to like have that. So if I just kind of like push it off, then like, but it's actually like, it's great. Like I love the fact that I'm dyslexic. Like I wouldn't change it. I like telling people, it's not a problem anymore. But
Yeah, I think a lot of people are reluctant to label their kid. And you do have to remember, like, each kid obviously is not dyslexia or whatever. But I think kids internalize like what's wrong with me. And then you can say, well, your brain is just wired differently. And this is what you have. And lots of other people have it too. And we'll deal with it. And we just gotta accommodate. And there's lots of strengths and there's some difficulties too. But I think it helped me to relate to him better. And yeah, we're not afraid of the label and the specific tutoring for dyslexia too, because a lot of reading intervention doesn't help kids with dyslexia.
Thank you. Yeah. And I actually, tomorrow we are kicking off our monthly, it's going to be called Lexia Learners Lounge, and it's a monthly meeting. It'll be the third Thursday of the month after tomorrow. And it's a time for people, kids and adults, to come together and talk about dyslexia, talk about their experiences, not be ashamed of what's going on. So I'd like to invite you guys to come tomorrow if you'd like, or if tomorrow doesn't work, next month. Love to have, see you and have you guys be able to be the ambassadors for other people who may not be as far along as you guys are in your journey. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to jump on this Facebook Live with me and Elizabeth. And I thank you, Elizabeth, for your help as well. And
so empowering hearing what everybody said, especially with my daughter. She's only 7, so knowing that tackling it early is an important thing. And I appreciate all of the insight that you all shared today. Thank you so much.
thanks, you guys. And definitely we'll stay in touch.
Yeah.
Okay.